Hi, this is Pamela from Hello Health and the Encouraging Wellness Podcast. And today I have David Isenberg from Magik Roots. David's journey is a really cool one. He founded Magik Roots in 2018, creating lots of full plant products that are naturally infused using traditional methods of making the plants more palatable and easier to use. And infusion is a really delicate process of soaking the botanical plants that are volatile and dissolve readily to release their active ingredients, nutrients, and vital healing properties gradually into water oil, like steeping tea. So that way it's done he's learned how to do this in a very clean and incredible way, as well as he has gone into full plant, which means everything is used, including the roots for all products. And he will walk us through a lot of his health and wellness journey, how and why he started Magik Roots after many years of working in the pharmaceutical industry, retail, wholesale, running his own companies, was introduced to CBD, whole plant hemp in 2017. And it led him into much deeper findings that allow for plants to be good uses for things like cancer, pain, sleep, and even building blocks. So he lives in California and is super excited to have David with us here today. So David, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time. And it's encouraging to, as it says on your statement here, it is encouraging to be able to come into this realm and be able to help people understand more about the plants that we've lost sight of. So
tell us more about your background and how you kind of have gotten through this journey that you're on.
Yeah. So I started in pharmaceutical a long time ago and did 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, not really understanding or knowing a lot about it, but learning as I went. And everything from diabetes care to actually teaching doctors and lab technicians how to run equipments and or tests, everything from insulin pumps to slide-based assays for lupus, determining lupus, to teaching techs how to run big test machines for HPLCs and things of that nature. And I also worked in the other side, in the laboratories and things of that nature. And I saw some of the things that went on in that industry, and it was good. But at 20, I was done. I had enough. It was a rough industry. It had its ups, its downs. There were good people, bad people, as in any industry. Then started my journey into my own businesses and started to educate myself in the business side. 2017 rolled around, and some friends of our family actually introduced me to CBD, and needed to use that for some family issues too. Started doing my research, and in the beginning, CBD or hemp, as it actually is, was in its infancy. Actually, they called prohibition back then, and started doing my research to find out, that it was a super important plant for our health, as it's the only plant on Earth that has as many cannabinoids, 144 plus possibly at this point, and 400 different compounds that actually marry up to our own bodies, meaning that symbiotically it's connected to us in that many places, and and they synthesize into our own. And as I started to learn more about how it worked in our immune system, in our endocannabinoid for health and all well-being, I started to work in the industry and started to actually sell a product. Fell out of the situation with the friends that I started with for integrity reasons of my own good integrity reasons, and started my company to actually be able to bring integrity to what I did and what I was selling. So it was important to come to that full circle to get to where I am today. So I find it very interesting.
No, that's
this
awesome.
Industry. Yeah.
It is super, super interesting. And, it's not just, you kind of touched on it with the labs, but it's also the way the herbs are collected, the way they're extracted, the way that they're presented. I mean, there's some people that use really harsh chemicals to pull nutrients out, and that doesn't always leave it to be the most nutritious for the body. I mean,
right.
So tell us a little bit about some of the plants and herbs that you enjoy working with, that you've seen to make a difference in people's lives, some of the methods that you use to extract and infuse, and what that looks like.
Yeah. So touching on that base of where the plants come from, so important. You can buy them online now anywhere, and all these are coming from many, many different places. But to find the products in the place where they're supposed to be grown. So like when I buy mushrooms, like your lion's mane, chagas and things of that nature, and I make it a point to shop the person and the people and the place that I'm buying it before I even step off the plate. So like just the mushrooms that I buy come from a 20-year plus farm that wild harvests on their own property. And it's a family business, been there for, like I said, plus 20 years. They grow it in the right substrate, which brings the immunity into the first part of it. And then what you do with it after that is also equally important. Everything from encapsulating it in the right clean capsule to putting it in the right oils. So I basically make sure that when I'm putting something out, it is the best of the best that I can find anywhere. And to me, that makes sense because it actually will now offer the results that are needed. So if it's herb and it's earth grown in the sun, very important. As we have, all these different lighting elements now. And in the cannabis or industry, there's a lot going on, and a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot going on with plant hormones, and they're sticking plant hormones under the plants to actually make them better, stronger, and grow faster. So I figure that as being an interesting experiment coming forth in the near future. We'll find out what the results are. But I like my plants to be naturally harvested, naturally grown, organically soiled, so on and so forth. So I'm very meticulous in what I'm putting into my products first. And then everything to the capsule and the oil. Our process is really different than extraction. Extraction comes through as a machine that forcibly pushes the oil out. What our proprietary methodology that we've used is we're actually soaking it, in my method, the plant into a fractionated coconut, which is different than an MCT. And then we're actually letting the plant homogeneously move into the oil. And then this way you're getting the full body of the plant in the oil by osmosis, so to say.
But to touch on this for a second, because you just skipped over something, which is kind of cool. Talk about what is a fractionated coconut oil versus an MCT oil.
Okay. Yeah. So an MCT is a single-celled type of triglyceride. Okay. And so MCT is going to be a single triglyceride. In the way it's manufactured, it's processed to get there. And fractionated is a little different process. Again, it's another homogeneous process of extracting, or not extracting, but getting the fat off of the coconut fat off of the oil, and you're still left with the two medium chain triglycerides in the fractionated. So it's a little different than an MCT, costs a little bit more, because of the way it's made and the way that they have to take the fat off. And then on top of that, it has its own healing properties. They've seen progress with just the fractionated for epilepsy and many other things, just the oil before you put anything in it. So it already has its own healing properties before we actually infuse. So that's another one that's really important. Yes, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. But then talk about some of the plants and herbs that you really have seen some incredible, obviously you offer more of a B2B model for companies to purchase products from you rather than consumers, but you've got a very unique set of products that have some really neat herbs that
Thank you.
With some pretty incredible healing properties. So talk about some of those.
Thank you. Yes, luckily I've had herbs come to me. They've actually contacted me, and everybody finds that really funny. In my family, they all like, wow, what do they do? Reach out and call you? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. But like one is fireweed. Fireweed's an interesting plant. It's been around for a millennial. It's been used by the Inuit in their dietary on a regular basis since the beginning of their time, because it grows wild up in the Northwest. But the properties that exist in there, and why I found it or found me, was first off, I found it for prostate. And the first thing that I found out that it did was it'll shrink a prostate down. And I've actually seen cases or testimonials of people that have been they've had their PSA at 10, and within a matter of a month, their PSA has gone down to about a 1 by taking 3 doses a day of the fireweed we make. And so that's just one of the herbs. But what we are doing, things like lion's mane, which would be a nice mushroom for cognitive. And then we're mixing some products together, kind of like our CBG, which is the mother cannabinoid in the hemp plant, and the lion's mane. And we're actually seeing improvements for Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. And because the plants are grown in the correct substrates, they actually have more action that way, which to me is the most important part, is if we can get them to do something within us correctively. And same thing I do with the hemp too. And hemp has so many different good properties, everything from being able to neutralize cancer to the CBG, working on tumors and things of that nature. Passion potion we made for some people that were having some issues because it heightens the sexual arousal. It also helps with any kind of dysfunctions that may be happening, male or female, and brings a libido right back into the place where it needs to be healthy. What else? We have ashwagandha, very popular now, very, very good for testosterone and also for estrogen. But now we're making some other things like a prenatal. I think you noticed our prenatal has the red raspberry leaf in there. Very fantastic herb. And we're creating other things. Our oregano, we've done an old fashioned, but we've given it a new twist by infusing it now. Most of the old time people that make oregano make tinctures with alcohol, and they have a horrible taste. And I was able to actually make it have a nice flavor for an oregano and still work robustly in your body. And it's amazing because these things, have been time tested, but they've just not been kind of molded or modernized to what we now have. And that's really kind of a thing that I'm doing, is infusing the products, and then also the capsules too. So we're also making the capsules, which, well, they stand the test of time. They have a great shelf life, as you've found too. So
Yes, and you're using real vegan Julian correctly.
And they seal the oxygen out. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. No, it's really good. And I don't think that a lot of people realize how important oregano is for gut health.
Oh no, it is. Yeah, no, it's amazing because it is the herbal equal to penicillin, and it works in many different applications in your mouth, on the skin. I have a friend of mine who's a veteran, a Vietnam vet, and his skin's very thin, so he gets cuts. And he buys my oregano and puts it on his cuts, and he says, and it heals like that. He says, no infections, no nothing. And he's like, man, he goes, why didn't you come up with this earlier? That's all he says to me. Because it heals his skin really fast,
Yeah. Well, and you touched on it a little bit. CBG with tumors. And so my mom's been dealing with stage 4 cancer for years. And part of what she believes has kept her around is she takes CBG in the morning or mid-morning, and then her CBN at night. And it helps with, reducing the size of the tumors, and with inflammation, and with sleep and discomfort. And then that way she doesn't have to rely on Tylenol and Advil, which she shouldn't be doing with her kidneys anyway.
Yeah, it actually fires up the body. So the CBG goes in, it's adaptogenic. And it fires up the body's own immune system. So it's really taking and helping your body with the properties that it needs. And on the tumor side of things, what it does, in the research that I've done, which I do a lot of research, I pull studies off. CBG is very interesting. It will actually kill a MRSA virus, which is a drug-resistant virus created in the hospital. And it does that by piercing through the protein cell and getting into the nucleus and killing the nucleus. Same process that has to happen for a tumor, so to say, has to get past that barrier. And amazing CBG has come to its own, but not well looked at. One thing that I do that's different than a lot of people in that industry is I claim the facts because of my testing, and that is the way that I make my product. The CBGA, which is an acid complex on the back end of either CBDA or CBGA, is in the plant naturally. And when they get processed through machines, that acid drops off because it's a very sensitive molecule. And it's a very important molecule. And through my process of making the products, the CBDA is still able to be found in the tests as the highest number as it is naturally in the plant. And that is very important for distribution of the body and getting through the stomach, the A, because the acid doesn't fight with the stomach acid at that point. It actually gets through and works in a little different way at that point, processing through the body. And then pierces through to actually shrink tumors. I don't know if you want me to talk about a study that we did.
Please, I think it's super.
So one of my neighbor's dogs had tumors. And this works the same way with all mammals on Earth. The CBD and the CBG work well with all mammals on Earth. And so it's going to work almost the same with us, with our pets. And when they came to me and they had already had 2 operations to remove 2 tumors from their pet. And their dog was lethargic, not doing well. They asked me for some CBDA, just to make them comfortable, because we're probably going to put them down. And I said, well, what's going on with your dog? And they told me, and I said, well, here, try this. Put it on 2 to 3 times a day. And they started putting on the CBG on the tumor direct on the skin. And within a matter of a week, the tumor dropped and went down, subsided. The dog was up, walking around, wagging its tail and eating again.
That's awesome.
Whereas, so And that was around Thanksgiving of last year. So happy to report that dog is doing well. And so there are plants that have the ability to actually help us through certain situations. We only have to seek them out. And I think hemp is one of those, because it has the 144 different cannabinoids that marry up to our body, what we already have inside of us. I believe it's one of the most important plants in our arsenal of life.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And there's a lot of discussion now around psilocybin. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Yes.
Might be messing up.
If not, you're close, because I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation too. So.
Yeah, which some people might call magic mushrooms, or So tell us a little bit about what you know in this space and what you think is valuable.
Yeah. So about almost a year ago, I had a friend of mine who was a nurse, and she was getting very recluse. So she was having a problem, and she was taking my CBDA products, and she asked me, "Would you be willing to make me a mushroom, magic mushroom infusion?" And I was like, "Well, let me research it first and find out." And it took me a few months to really dig in to figure out how it's going to work and how the mechanics of infusing the mushroom into the oil, and what the numbers needed to be, so on and so forth. And I kind of came up with a recipe and put it together. In California, we're in a prohibition in that right now, possibly going to be legalized by this year, by the end of this year. It is legal in certain areas of California. And one thing that I do know about it is that it actually works really great in the cognitive area of the brain, for rerouting thoughts. And so by my abilities to infuse it, we were able to get rid of the harsh taste of the mushroom. We were also able to get rid of the gut issues that usually come or are associated with mushrooms, where people will feel their gut kind of feel a little bad, depending on the mushrooms they're taking. And we're able to actually set it up so that it was a nice micro dose. She started taking the mushroom infusion and said, "Wow, I don't know how you did this, but this is perfect. And you nailed it the first time." And she says, "And I'm already feeling better." And so she now is back to her normal nursing, going out socially, being good in society again. And what basically is happening with the mushrooms is that, and just in a PTSD, what happens with us is we'll get stuck in what they call like a loop video playing in our head. That's the only way I can describe it. So you have a little loop video running in your head, and it just plays over and over and over and over again. And it's stuck in your head. And that's that subconscious area that's just stuck there. So with the mushrooms, in a micro dose, in a small amount, doesn't get you really high, because it's not meant to do that. It's meant to go in, might make colors a little more vivid. It might make your focus a little more intense, and it might make you heightened awareness of everything around you. What it's doing is actually helping that loop video that you have. It's actually helping rewire around it. So the loop video can play, but you have a new thought path that you can use around that video. It's the best way I can describe it, so that you can clearly think forward instead of being stuck in that past situation.
So with that in mind, if it's making you more focused, is it the kind of thing that you would take with breakfast, mid-morning, lunch, or is it more of a nighttime, let your brain kind of revive while it's not overly stimulated?
Herbs are interesting in all aspects, because they are really something you need to have your own heightened sense of feel for. Mm-hmm. And I always tell everybody, that you have to be able to understand what your body's telling you when you're taking them and when you're not. You should always take a break from herbs, whether it be a day or two, to let your body reset. But the other side of this is that dosing is really personal and should be personal as to how you feel. So what we're seeing is people are taking different levels and doses to actually do the modulation for their body. And so it becomes more of a personal situation also when they take it, because if they're having problems, sleep issues at night, maybe they should take it at night. If they want to have a heightened sense of awareness during the day, maybe they take it in the morning, let it go all day long. If they feel like their afternoons are where their crunch is, maybe they want to take it in the afternoon to get past that crunch. So it is I believe it's a personal thing. And once you get a feel for it, you should be able to understand where it applies.
No, that's
as with all herbs.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So what are common questions that people come to you with?
Oh, well, am I going to get high? And normally, no, not the way I do things. I'm not here to make people high. I'm here to actually help them through the heal process. So a lot of people ask me, well, why don't you do gummies? And I said, because gummies don't represent a healthful medicine. To me, that's just my own personal. They ask about the hemp and what it's going to do. Am I going to feel high or this and that? Especially when I do something that's different than RSO. I do a RSHO, which is a Rick Simpson hemp oil, which is made directly from hemp. And there is very low THC in there. And that product does the same thing as the RSO that gets you high. And then we have a CBG one too that we make, an RSO CBG. So they always ask, am I going to get high? And usually not. Now, if you took enough of like the mushroom infusion, there's a possibility, but you could take a lot of all kinds of different herbs and have an effect. And it's just a matter of, what your body is used to, what your body's not used to, what the effect will be, and is it sustainable on your body? So, but those are the really big questions. Like if you microdose the mushrooms, you're not going to lose control or be out of control. I've had some of the most questions have been on the mushrooms, and most people are like, well, I'm scared. And I said, well, do it on a weekend, start off with a quarter. And then they said, wow, I used a quarter and it was good. It was, but I moved up to a half and it was better. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm all great. And it was like better because the colors were more vivid, flowers were prettier, and, just jumping, like kind of like, wow, beautiful right there. And I was at a heightened state of alert with everything around me and more, thoughtful about everything that was happening in that moment where I was, not to be high, but to be conscious of the moment. And I was like, perfect. That's the right place for you then. And that's where personal comes in. I think that's the hardest part for all of us in this industry, is to teach people how to be consciously aware of themselves.
Yeah. And, as we think about success stories, obviously you touched on prostate, you touched on cancer, you've touched on Parkinson's. Anything else that, comes to mind that we forgot to mention?
Well, just basically pain. A lot of people have pain. And when you get into that situation, there's all these drugs that are out there that can be prescribed for that. Are they fixing the problem? No. Basically, they're kind of masking the problem. The RSHO is probably like a really great pain relief, the RSHO. I've had people that have gone through surgeries in the hospital. I had a lady that had her neck fused because she had a problem, and she refused any meds in the hospital. Only thing she took was my RSHO for pain, and totally worked for her. She just took a bunch of it.
Feel high.
Nope. If anything, you'll get tired, but that's because your body at rest heals best. So if you listen to it, you'll be healing better when you're asleep. And so she took a lot of RSHO. They're healing. I have another lady that had a thyroid problem, and it was corrected with our CBDA. And there's so many. The fireweed. I can tell you a story about a boy who's 7 years old that had a bad incontinent problem with his bowels. And very sad story, because the doctors said, well, there's nothing we can do, and we don't know what's causing it. But you can give him an enema every day before school so he can make it through school. And they came to me and they said, well, what do we do? And I said, well, if you give him an enema every day, he's going to be having a bag by the time he's 10 years old. I said, because it's going to rupture something eventually, and you're going to have a problem. And I said, so let's start with the fireweed on the weekend and see what happens. Give it to him 3 times a day. Well, he hasn't had an enema since. And he now is playing softball. He goes to school. Questions are good. Solutions are good. There's solutions for all kinds of different things that go on in life with herbs. And we basically have the ability to heal ourselves with the right recipes.
Well, and fireweed in particular, it has anti-parasitic properties. Is that right? Or
yes, has antimicrobial, antibacterial. It has vitamin C. Has, I think, vitamin D. It is loaded. It is a amazing plant. I always look at plants from an aspect of, at this point in my life, from how they operate on Earth. And so fireweed, interestingly enough, in Alaska, if they clear cut a forest or burns, the first plant to come up and enrich the soil is fireweed. So it starts what we call new growth and replenishes the soil and starts everything over again. So I always look at it that if that's what it does in nature, we're just a smaller ecosystem. So when we take the fireweed, it reboots the system, and it does exactly what it does out there in the wild. And so I like to think that that's how the plants work inside of our ecosystem, because we're just a smaller version of the forest. So.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And I think there's so much time spent on taking prebiotics and probiotics, but we also need to really, really be clear and thoughtful about making sure that we're taking certain herbs that clean up the gut too, that are antibacterial, antiviral.
Yeah. Well, we're very, very set on our vitamins.
Yes.
And that's only half of the whole situation. Vitamins are only like 50% of the real deal. So, you can get the vitamin C here, but if you eat the orange, you get all this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always look at it this way, is that you can take the vitamin C, which is great, but get some herbs in there too. Get some other things going on, because they're also going to help the vitamin C work better. Besides eating the orange too. And if you don't want to eat the orange, then eat the vitamin C, but also take some herbs to balance your body out. With the foods and things that we have today, we're not getting the actual nourishment that we need out of them. So fireweed, for me, is one of the first things that people should all take to clean out the gut, get the extra candidas out, get that gut flora working again so we can actually absorb food efficiently and effectively. And then we can start moving down that path, change our diet, all those things that have to happen alongside of just that first scenario. So.
Good. Well, thank you. Anything I forgot to ask about, or anything you want to mention?
I don't know. I don't think so. But
all right. And then if people want to find out more about you and some of the research and any information you have, where can they find you?
We have a website. I do not sell direct. We're a business to business company. But they can still call and ask me questions. I'm happy to answer some questions. But we are Magik with a K, roots.com. And we are just really looking to help change people's lives. That's really, if I think that there's a whole movement and a collective of human beings at this point that are now connecting, like you and I, that really want to be able to help people change their lives. And we're now making a movement to show them that there's plants that are involved with that change, aside from the diet, aside from, one thing I'm going to tell you, and this is just a quick note. My son, he's 17 years old, very healthy. He said to me yesterday, he says, McDonald's now has this new shake out based on the Grimace. Yeah. He says, but it tastes like vanilla. Okay. But if you eat French fries, it'll taste like berries. It's a chemical reaction between the two. And he says, I'm never eating there again. And I said, well, how long's it been? And he go, oh, well, yeah. But that just goes to show you that they're selling us chemical reactions. And I think it's coming from a 17-year-old boy. It's very interesting, because I hope we can teach this to our children, to carry this on, to help keep changing that reality that's here, so we can become a healthier race of humans and live like they used to back in the old days, 300 years old.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, David.